Alright, so this is Photo Critique Part 2 for this week, where I was going to talk about some of the stuff that I did in Iceland. Just got back from a 2-week venture all around the island. On my screen here you can see the country of Iceland, and this was the route that we took. We started in Reykjavik, which is the capital, and then traveled our way to this place. Not even going to try to pronounce it. And along the way we stopped at a bunch of different locations, and I'm kind of glazing over it. We stopped here in the Golden Circle area, saw some different things, which I'll show you some images of, and I think you've seen some images of. Then we worked our way through here, stayed here for a couple days, worked our way down here, was here for a couple days, and in this area, worked our way down to Vik for a night, which was very nice. And then we took the ferry to Vestmanager, which was hell. I mean, you guys heard a little bit about how sick I got on that, but learned some stuff about myself, which was good. And then we came back to Reykjavik and stayed there for a couple days, where I managed to capture some fantastic footage for a couple different purposes, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So I got, actually, since the last one, it has now grown to 2 lists of things I want to talk about, since we're focused on this one. So that's the trip. And then we're going to look at some images. We're going to talk about some things such as lines and histogram, things that I learned, things that you should know as well. And yeah, so first off, that was where I went. I went with McKay Photography Academy, McKayLive.com. They do a whole bunch of tours all over the United States and the world, so there's probably one near you in the next year. And they're a fantastic group of people that truly believe in having a good time, taking great photos, and showing you some amazing places and making it very easy on you. And you get to make some great friends along the way. So I went with them, with David and Ali McKay. I also went with Toby, who's Photorec Toby at Photorec TV, who made me aware of McKay Photography through their sponsorship of his online YouTube channel, which was fantastic. It was really great to work with him, and I did capture an interview with him at the end on the last day as well that I'm going to use for some material. Just a great trip. And then, of course, the other participants on the trip were fantastic. Everyone was a lot of fun. There was apparently some infighting. I wasn't really aware of it. I was really focused on the photography and the scenery and what I was doing. Other people didn't really play into it too much. So that's that. I learned a lot. You know, there's all different levels of photographers on these trips, from beginners with T3Is to Toby, who's got the latest and greatest A7R Mark II. So there's all different ranges, and they have a whole bunch of instructors, a handful, so it's normally like a 4-to-1 ratio. So they're able to split people up into groups depending on level and kind of focus on everyone's needs particularly. But they definitely focus on larger things on the whole group as well. And just a great group of people. Really made the trip easy, as much as it can be easy. Iceland is actually pretty brutal as far as the country goes. I mean, I've been to a lot of different countries, but the weather changes there drastically. The time on the high seas I will never forget, and just a really dynamic landscape that is just constantly changing. I mean, there's islands off Vestmanager where we stayed that were born as early as 1963. So there's it's like new Earth being created, and just it's very it's extremely shaped by water. So you can have a mountainside there in the winter, and by the next winter, that mountainside has been cut in half, and now there's a massive valley there, glaciers spilling over, volcanoes, thermal activity, steam, and of course I got images and video of all this. So some of the videos for Innocently Violent, some of it was for a promo video that I was going to make for some of the people with the trip, and some of it's just for fun. So I got some great interviews. Thanks to some good contacts, I got interviewed the Minister of the Environment for the federal government of Iceland, a former Minister of the Environment. Interviewed a lead activist who was responsible in the major resignation of the government in 2008 after the financial collapse in Iceland, which was a very interesting interview. Also the first gay man to come out in Iceland back in the 70s, which pretty much destroyed his career, but then led an activism route to become this very politically active person that made a lot of waves. So that was very interesting as well. Interviewed Toby, interviewed off the island of Vestmanager, interviewed the last private engineer for the last private boat in that that harbor. It's now, you know, back in the 100 years ago, there was not, you know, 150 boats that were all privately owned, and now all of those boats are owned by 2 corporations. And this is the last fishing boat in that port. So that was a great interview as well. He took me around the island, showed me his man caves, his motorcycles. He builds miniature boats. That was really cool. So I guess I'm kind of leading on. But either way, fantastic trip. I would really suggest you check out McKay's website. There's trips I'm going to go on. The next trip I'm going to go on with them is in January. I'm going to go up to Yosemite, I believe. Is that the one? Yeah, it's right up the road. So, and again, Toby and Christine are going to be on that one as well. And I'm just going to go. It's a short 3-day trip, and we will be doing some winter photography and some beautiful naturistic landscapes, which is kind of my thing. I like nature. That's what I've really found out about myself. So I guess I kind of knew that. So that was kind of the info beginning. Everything else I'm about to cover is going to be learning oriented. Some of the stuff definitely that I learned and I think that you guys should know. And we spoke a little bit about it back there in the other video on Photo Critique 25, but this one's going to go a little bit heavier into it. So the first one and the most important one, maybe not the most important one, but definitely a very important one. Something that matters while you're shooting raw. I kind of lost my train of thought in the last video, but the point is, with proper reading of the histogram, you can get a much larger range during your image capturing and not worry so much about it, and knowing your abilities in post-processing. So we've been working on the histogram in Lightroom and properly setting our white and our black points to give us proper or better dynamic range, rather. The histogram on the camera is very similar, and it tells you the same exact information in the same exact way. So I got one camera here. It's a massive brick. So I'm going to try to turn this on and show you. So we're talking about histograms. So on this camera in front of me, I have a histogram. I'm going to try to let it zoom there. This is the histogram, and this is the same representation of the one that is in Lightroom. Properly reading this histogram is a more accurate way. Let me hold it better. It's a more accurate way to read your light metering. So as you can see right now, it's kind of in the middle. Well, not really, but it's definitely a different range. And there, if I add my lighter skin color, you can see it's in the middle. That right there is proper exposure. Now there you start to get some blackness, and you see how it kind of slams to that one side. Now if I cover it up, it's going to completely slam. That means that your histogram is not, there's no information. So when it's slammed all the way to that side, it's telling you there's not enough information and you've lost detail. On the same regard, if I was to pump up the ISO, yeah, am I going the right way? No, I'm not going the right way. Yeah, if I pump up the ISO, there we go. You see that histogram is now slammed to the left. Now anything in the middle is okay, as long, and see how it's not completely slammed, but it's very close. That's acceptable. But at the other opposite side, on the blacks, you want to keep it in the middle. So I'm going to take this down so I can try to properly explain this a little bit better. So we use our meter to determine the proper amount of light that we're going to capture an image with, and that gives us a generalized assumption on one point. The histogram, and we'll go to the screen here, and the one on there focuses on 3 different peaks, which include your highlights, your midtones, and your shadows. Those 3 different peaks are going to move around on your histogram depending on the amount of light that you're allowing into the camera. That will give you a better range of light. So even if it seems overexposed on the meter, on your histogram, as long as you're not slammed all the way to the far right wall, and as long as there's a little bit of space between the histogram and that right wall of overexposure, you still have data in that range. At the same time, on the opposite side of that histogram, again, the histogram on your camera, as long as you're not slammed to that far left wall and you have a little bit of space between the histogram and the far left wall, meaning your blacks, that means there's still enough information there that they can pull it back and save some of that information. So that's a better representation of light that's getting... Alright, I lost my train of thought. You got dogs barking for no reason. Okay, So a better representation, a better understanding of your histogram will give you better dynamic range in capturing a raw image, which then you can manipulate back in your editing. So where that really comes into play is in split frame scenarios where you have part where the sky is very overexposed and the ground is clearly not nearly as exposed. There's a lot of different things you can do to get around this. Great graduated ND filters that adjust for the sky, and then being able to move those up and down on your camera can reduce overexposure in your sky and match the underexposure of the ground. However, for most of us who don't have those ND filters, and you don't want to take an HDR photo because those don't really come out as well, you want to get a better mid-range between the photo. So if the sky is got a lot of clouds in it and you want to get those clouds as detail, what you want to do is set your exposure for the sky and make sure that you're not blowing out your whites. And then as long as your shadows, your dark area, which is the ground, is not as far left to that left wall of your histogram where you're losing your black information, you can bring that back with, as in Lightroom, the gradiated filter, which I'm showing you right now as you just pull in one way, and then you can manipulate that area to make it darker or lighter, and then add shadows, reduce shadows, and things of that nature. So reading your histogram and understanding your histogram is definitely one of the most important things I learned on this trip, because it gives you a better representation of the exposure of your entire image as opposed to your metering, which can be set in your settings to either a spot meter or a different style of metering that'll give you different readings of light. The histogram will give you a more even across the board representation of light. So that was a very good thing to learn. As we spoke a little bit about in the last one, lines. Lines are extremely important in photos, and finding the line in the image is more important than just taking a picture. So part of the mental processes that really were ingrained in me into this trip were using the time before I picked up that camera to survey the landscape, see what I was looking at, see what stood out to me as a subject. And we've talked about this before as far as what does your eye fall on, how does it fall there, and then once you've determined what your subject is finding a line to help further the eye to your subject as well as frame some of the image. So the first couple days I was in Iceland, I was pretty beat and I didn't really get into taking some nice photos, but let me get to one where I'm talking about. So here is this the one I'm referring to? So this is the first one of four, not the first, but one of four styles of lines, which is an S-curve. So I haven't edited this I have not edited this image enough to the fact that I want to remove these two cars off in the background, but I have properly set my whites and blacks, and this line comes out of this right corner and is an S-curve line. That was the type of image that I wanted to use, and it uses this line to lead it right to the sunset, which is where I want you to be. And then I have just some nice little framing devices to give you some scenery and some context. There's still things I can do to this image, probably dehaze if I haven't done it yet. I have not. So a little dehazing can help clean that image up a little bit. A good thing to do, I learned, is to slam right and see the extremes and then back off from there and see where you like it. Not really referring to the meter as much, but you do have to watch when you overdo these kind of adjustments how much grain and artificial noise it can add to the image. So that's one of the four types of lines. What's another type of line that I have? Oh, here's another good one. So this is an image I published. Now there's a couple different lines here, but as this is a landscape photo, I wanted to just kind of lead the eye through the image. And the first line is this one here on the bottom, which is this fence. Again, coming out of the bottom right corner, and I actually, on the one of these that I edited, I cropped this in so it was actually there. I think I might even have brought it up a little bit so that the line was truly coming out of that corner. The next line that you'll notice is the one leading down this way. Again, all these lines, and then another series of lines is this, the line of fields that are leading you. All of these lines, as well as this line here, is leading you to really which my subject is these mountains in the background. But it's an entire scenic shot. Also, I have a nice little S-curve line over here, but that's just kind of a little additive that is, again, just helping to kind of frame these lines and bring you in the direction. Just a lot of good lines in this photo that makes it a more dynamic image that gives it some action, gives it some direction, and I think really helps set pictures apart from just pictures and actually into photographs and then editing it. So this one I have not edited. I have already published this one, but not in this library, so I guess we can go through it. A couple things you'll notice is that this has a base preset applied to it, the Toby base preset that comes with this video, so that some of you guys got. So make sure you have those, and I apply the base preset to everything. And then of course down here you'll see that it's removed chromatic aberration and enabled profile lens correction, which is that warping, distortion, and vignetting that can occur with variable focal lenses. So from here, my exposure looks pretty good. The first thing I notice is the clouds. It's normally the first place I look is my highlights, because that's going to reduce things. And I haven't changed my highlights. I want to see those clouds a little bit better. So I'm going to pull my highlights pretty much all the way down. And now if I pull in the opposite direction, you can see overexposed at that range, and then under gives me that really dynamic range in those clouds. So I'm going to leave my highlights totally pulled down. Now as you notice, the image looks a little bit blown out, a little bit gray. So I'm going to add some exposure, which kind of offsets the highlights, but that's alright because I want that definition there. A little bit of exposure, maybe that was a little bit too much, because where I'm really going to come back with the proper exposure is by setting my whites and black points. As you can see on my histogram, I'm very far from losing any information in my whites. So it's going to make a pretty significant change when I drag this over, and it's going to make the image look properly exposed, and my whites are going to be proper. And I haven't lost that detail in the sky. Next I'm going to set my black points. Same way. And that's already just added a little bit more to the image. Now in the sky I'm going to pop those blues a little bit more, but at first what I'm going to do is, in all pictures on Earth, there's moisture in the air, there's haze, things of that nature. So yeah, you want to try to remove a little bit of that, but not overdo it. So I go to the dehaze tool down here, remove a little dehaze. There you go. Cleans it up a little bit. Now you can see where it kind of cleans up the stuff on the ground, and then it gets into the sky. Now pushing it too far kills some of that information, so I don't want to do that. I just want to clean it up a little bit, remove some of that haze, and there we go. From there, my whites and blacks are still good. Doesn't look like I'm losing anything, but now I'm going to add some color. The sky looks a little less blue than it should, and I'm not making it unrealistic. I'm just adding some of what I felt, because it's about adding your feeling, what you felt while you take the image into it. So I can change. I don't want to change the color. I just want to make it a little bit more blue and reduce some luminance. There we go. And then the same thing with the greens. Actually, what I found in these images is really the yellows, and dragging some of the yellows to a different hue adds a nice little bit of green, and then just adding a touch of saturation here. And there we go. Whites and blacks are still properly set, and I'm going to hit tab so I can see just that image, and I'm happy with that image. That's one that I've already published, but that's me re-editing how I did that image. So hopefully you learned a couple things. I mean, basically that's how I edit every photo, depending on what it is. So that was a good one about lines, pictures, and editing. Other representations of lines. Ooh, this is just a cool picture. I haven't cleaned it up yet. It's a little sneak peek. Ooh, my nice little piece of ice. Oh, that's not a nice picture. There we go. That was a really cool piece of ice. Everybody seemed to like this photo. I haven't edited it again yet from Photoshop, which I did, but the line in the background, yeah, a little bit. Not a good representation. This one's okay. Lines leading you this way, lines leading you down this way, lines kind of all converging on the center of the image. I actually was going to make this a black and white. So, oh, here's another form of lines. Just a simple barren road picture. Good representation of lines, give you direction. Very similar to the railroad image, which we saw last one. Again, don't shoot on railroad tracks, bad idea. Yeah, so there's a lot of other ones that I just don't want to click on yet because I have not edited them yet. God, I can't say that today. It's a stupid word. I'm just going to say pancakes from now on. I haven't pancaked them yet. This is another one. Leading lines, line here, lines here, all just kind of pushing your eye down down that valley. Again, I have not pancaked this one yet. There's Toby. They actually used that picture for the vlog. That was cool. This is cool. ND filter. Really able to slow that shutter down. There's way too much editing on that photo. Too much pancaking. This is what I was talking about with splitting that meter and exposing for the sky. So in this instance, what I would do is drag a gradiated filter up and then add exposure, reduce some shadows, and then add green, and then go through and I guess you get the idea. It's tough. Or you can take two images and add them together. That one looks a little close. So, I also shot a lot of video. Let's see, where's our video? That's processing. Yeah, I shot some video. We will go to that real quick. Made a little video out of it. That'll get shared in a couple days. So, yeah, lots to do. There's another short video for you on some stuff. So if you want to partake in this, this is a video assignment. So this is going to be video critique number 1. God, we're really going to start this? Shoot an interview with someone. Put the camera on a tripod. Get an out of focus background. Focus on the subject. Make sure they're in focus on a tripod with your shotgun mic. And I want a 1-minute interview with anyone, asking who they are, where they live, and what they like to do. That's it. 3 questions. That is your video assignment for this week. So it doesn't require any editing or anything, just a quick 1-minute video answering those 3 questions. They can go on for longer than a minute, of course, but just keeping it short so that we can upload it. If you have a YouTube channel, upload it to YouTube. If not, that's another part of the assignment, if you want to take it that far, or just send it to me in Google Drive. So yeah, I glazed over some stuff, but I'm running out of time, and I think I did it pretty well, so sorry for yelling, and I'll talk to you next time.